Sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Welcome, friends, and welcome again to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us. Well, to get going, I want to just issue a thank you to all our sponsors. I never think to do that often enough, and this show wouldn't be able to be broadcast to you each week without our sponsors. So we appreciate all of them. I won't try to mention them all by name because I'll forget somebody for sure, but it's a very important part of what we do here is the advertising. Each show is sponsored by a variety of local merchants. And without their participation and sponsorship, we couldn't do this and bring this show to you. So thanks again to all the sponsors. Tonight's show is kind of a, to use an old country word, a juiceless mixture. Got a little bit of everything to share with you tonight, including some more pictures of old grocery stores that were included in that bunch that we've been looking at for the last couple of weeks. I've got some more of those to share with you toward the end of the show tonight. But we're going to start off tonight with an old map. And when I say old, we're going way back, 1886. I stumbled across this map, and it's actually a map of North Carolina and South Carolina, and it's a great map. I saved the whole thing on my computer in my office because you can zoom in on it, you can zoom back out again, but it covers the entire state of North Carolina, the entire state of South Carolina, as it was in 1886. And the neat thing about it to me was that there's a lot of little communities around Nash and Edgecombe counties, some I had heard of, some I had never heard of before. But this map is just polka dotted all over the place with little communities and little towns and areas that over the years have changed names, obviously. Some have probably gone out of existence. But we'll start off tonight, Lee. Go ahead and pull up the first picture of that map. And again, this is from 1886. And the map itself, I've zeroed in and kind of just captioned just Nash and Edgecombe County in this picture. And I know it's a little blurry on your screen. I apologize for that. Sometimes when I take these pictures and bring them into the station and we put them on the equipment here in the station, they don't come across as clear as they are on my computer in my office, and I apologize for that. But I just want to point a couple things out to you. Number one, you see in the middle of the screen, to the left is Nash County, to the right is Edgecombe County, and right to the middle of the two of them is actually the railroad track that runs north to south from Wilson down to the very bottom of your screen down there, up through, of course, Elm City. Little town there just to the west of Elm City, a little community there, Cliftonsville. That was a new one on me. Never heard of Cliftonsville. Traveling on north on the train, you get to Sharpsburg, of course. Next stop would be Rocky Mount. And then, of course, heading on up north, Battleboro, and then Gold Rock up there by Battleboro, and then, of course, Whitaker's. As you branch off to the left and to the right of this train track that runs north to south through and divides the counties, there's some other little communities that some I'd heard of before over in Nash County to the west of the railroad track. Down there you see Fillmore in the bottom, just to the left and above to the left of Wilson is Fillmore. And then just to the left and just a little to the left and above that is a little community called Lamb, L-A-M-M. There is Talbot, a little community called Connor. One called Eatman in the far left-hand corner of your screen. I know it's a little blurry, but there's one called Dry Wells. Again, these are little communities that were in existence in 1886 in Nash County. We're in right now on the left-hand side of your screen. This is Nash County. Above Dry Wells, a little bit northwest of Dry Wells, would have been a community called Union Hope. Going back more eastward now, there's Glover, and then Stanhope. Stanhope I'm familiar with, been around a long time, and of course just north of Stanhope is Spring Hope. If you head back to the little northeast from there, of course you'd run back into Nashville, and to the left, or headed west from Nashville, you'd go to Oakland. How about that? Who knew there was an Oakland? If you come back to Nashville and head a little bit northwest, there's Dukes. And then, of course, directly north of Dukes is a little community of Hilliardston that I am familiar with. And as you leave Houston, headed northwest, you go to the little community of Argo. Now, those that watch us every week may remember Argo. We've talked about Argo. We've had a couple segments, in fact, in the past. There was a couple gold mines up in that area up there around Houston and Argo. And up until the 1930s, in fact, they were mining gold up there. The mines kind of started and stopped a couple times over the years. And it finally, what little bit of gold they were getting out of the mine was just not cost effective and not practical for the amount of money that they were taking to get the gold out of the ground. I understand that there's a little effort going underway now to mine some gold again up in that area. I'm not exactly sure where it is. It may be in this same Houston, Argo area, but I was told somewhere up north of Red Oak anyway that there was an effort again to mine some gold up there. So maybe whoever it is will find some gold. Leaving that area, of course, to the west, over toward Castalia. We're all familiar with Castalia. Headed back over to Edgecombe County. There's a little more communities here. Some of you sure heard of, I'm sure. Others probably not. As you leave Rocky Mount on the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad, headed east toward Tarboro, about halfway between Rocky Mount and Tarboro is a little community called Pinello, P-E-N-L-O, Pinello. If you leave Pinello headed somewhat north and west, there's a little community called Doughhead, D-O-E-H-E-A-D, Doughhead. From Doughhead, you could travel northwest and you get a little community of Rendale, that's W-R-E-N-D-A-L-E. And then headed south east from Rendale, you'd come back into Leggett. Just to the north and east of Leggett is a little community called Epworth, E-P-W-O-R-T-H. And a little bit south east of Epworth is a little community of Lawrence. Epworth I'd never heard of. Lawrence, I know where that is up there off Highway 258. And then, of course, a little bit south of Lawrence is a little community of Speed. At this point in 1886, there was not apparently a road that went directly between Speed and Coakley, but a little south and southeast of Speed is a community called Coakley, C-O-A-K-L-E-Y. And then, of course, if you were headed back a little more to the south and west from Coakley, which is a little bit southeast of Tarboro, you'd run into Mildred, a little community called Mildred. And a little bit southwest of Mildred is the community of Old Sparta. And then, of course, leaving there, headed more southwest, is a community of Crip, C-R-I-P. And down below that is a little community called Turnage, T-U-R-N-I-G-E. So anyway, I just thought it was neat. I wanted to share that with you tonight. These little communities, as I said, some have probably been taken in by larger communities and cities over the years and are no longer in existence. But in 1886, these little communities were all over North Carolina and South Carolina. Some of them were no more than a crossroad with one or two stores or a few residents living there. But they were, in many cases, were the start of some larger towns and cities eventually. And so they have their important place in history like anything else does. All right. When I was looking for things to talk about on the night show, I stumbled across an aerial picture that I had not seen before, and I'll show you that picture in a little bit. But before we get to that picture, there was a building in the picture that I knew looked familiar to me in this aerial photograph. I kept studying and studying, and I zoomed in and kept zooming in and zooming and zooming in, and lo and behold, I finally was able to read a sign on the side of the building. And the sign on the side of the building, and this was an aerial photograph from the 1950s, I should add. And so, of course, it's a black and white photograph. But the building that I was looking at and trying to figure out what it was, I eventually discovered was the Munn and Griffin Company building on South Church Street. So that led me on another one of my, what you might call a wild goose chase. I was determined to find out what I could about this place and see, if I could find some history about the building and the business and whatever. So I started digging back through my favorite place to research, the newspapers.com website, and lo and behold, I stumbled across this next item, which was an ad that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in 1920. I forgot one. I got ahead of myself. This was actually the 1908 city directory listed right here. And you see here in 1908, there was a company called Christian and Munn, John D. Christian and Manus D. Munn, were co-merchants, or co-owners, I should say, in a store at 228 South Washington Street. Now that's important because that is the first instance I can see, can find, I should say, of any business with the name Munn in it. And this was in the 1908 city directory. So these two fellows started this business in 1908. They started out on South Washington Street. This is in the general area where Moore's Bicycle Shop is, the area down there. So anyway, that was 1908. Now, 1920, Lee, if you would, this was the ad, there you go. This appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in 1920, and I still cannot quite figure out what that picture is. It says sun-kissed above. It does not appear to be an orange. That was my first thought, sun-kissed orange, but it doesn't appear to be an orange. It almost resembles a head of cabbage, maybe, could be cabbage. But what the ad says, it might be hard to read on your screen, so I'll read it to you. It says, Munn Griffin and Company, wholesale fruit, produce, and confectionaries. We serve the trade as we expect to be served, they say. We want your trade solely upon the merits of our goods. We take pleasure in thanking you for your patronage. Our motto is service. Our stock is fresh and clean. So in 1920, in the Rocky Mount Telegram, Munn and Griffin became the name of this business. I've got a little history we'll share with you a little bit later on about where the Christian man's name came into being. But in 1908, it started out as Munn and Christian. By 1920, it was Munn and Griffin. And so, Lee, if we could, the very next item is from March the 3rd of 1920, and there you see on your screen. This was an advertisement that appeared for the Carolina, Indiana Truck Company. If you notice at the bottom of your screen there, the Carolina, Indiana Truck Company. And in 1920, it was located on Rose Street. Now, I don't have an address, but if you remember from the last couple of weeks, we've talked about that area down there around Washington Street, Rose Street, just off of 5 Points. There's been several car lots, dealerships, and so forth. Harbor Street, Rose Buick, and so forth down there. Allen Mims Ford, of course. Chipley, Packard was down there for a while. But in any case, and Oldsmobile Place is down there, of course, too. But somewhere down on Rose Street in 1920 was the Carolina, Indiana Truck Company. Now, the top of the ad says confidence, and it reads as so. The following businessman had so much confidence in Indiana trucks in our exclusive truck service that they invested in Indiana's. You know them, you can profit by their experience, ask any one of them. And these are all local business owners listed down below, and I realize it's kind of blurry on your screen there, so I'll read some of these names off to you. Starting on the upper left-hand side there of this list of business owners is G.W. Bartholomew, and then his brother S.J. Bartholomew. Beneath that is a China American Tobacco Company. Beneath that is the Chero Cola Bottling Company. Now, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the bottling plants around Rocky Mount. There was one down on Falls Road down there where the old Phillips Body Shop used to be in that general area down there. And I believe it was this right here, this Chero, it's C-H-E-R-O, Chero Cola Bottling Company. There's not an address listed, by the way, for any of these advertisers here that were sponsoring this ad in support of the Carolina, Indiana Truck Company. But anyway, Chero Cola Bottling Company was there. Mr. George S. Edwards and Company, that's the store over on Marigold Street, that across from the city lunch. We've talked about that before in the past. And then the A.W. Gill Company. And then the top right-hand side of this list of businesses is the Munn Griffin and Company, wholesale fruits and produce. So in 1920, they were using Carolina, Indiana trucks, well, specifically Indiana trucks. That's a truck brand I'd never heard of. Don't know anything about it. Frankly, I'd be hard-pressed, I would imagine, to find one in existence still. But now I've got to go try to find one. I'm going to be on the hunt for an Indiana truck now. But anyway, down below that is the Rocky Mount Ice and Fuel Company. Below that is the Rocky Mount Woodworking Company. Below that is the H.H. Weeks Company. And below that is H.M. Walker. It says Lumberman under that man's name, H.M. Walker. So anyway, the ad goes on to say, there's an Indiana truck for your business, and our service makes it 100% investment. Carolina, Indiana Truck Company, Rose Street, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So in 1920, all these businesses were using or had used the Carolina, Indiana truck and in their business, and were, I guess, pleased enough with it to go together and put this ad in promoting the Carolina, Indiana Truck Company. Okay, fast forward to 1925, and Mr. Manus Munn had become quite the community leader. In fact, by 1925, he was a city alderman. And if you remember from previous shows, we've talked about prior to Rocky Mount having city council members, they had aldermen, served the same purpose. They represented different wards in the city in different areas, and so they were elected by the people who live in those respective wards. So this next picture is from, this picture appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in 1965, but it's a photograph that was taken in 1925 of the Rocky Mount alderman. So Lee, if you could, let's put up item number 5. And there you go. And as I said earlier, these pictures are not great quality, and we're going to show you some better quality pictures a little bit later on in the show, but these are just, they go so far back and the quality is just not there, unfortunately. But in this ad, this article appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram March 15th, 1965, and is the city leaders. That's what it captioned. And I'm going to read this to you. It says, most of these Rocky Mount leaders of 40 years have left this life stage, but their names remain known to perhaps more than was the case when this picture of the Board of Aldermen was made. In the front row are Van S. Watson, Jack Johnson, Mayor L.L. Gravely, J.L. Suter, which I believe is Dr. Suter, Tom Suter's father, Mr. R.C. Brake, Arthur Nelson, and M.D. Munn of the Munn Griffin Grocery Wholesaler. And then back row left to right, J.Q. Robinson, Thomas W. Coleman, and I believe that is the same Coleman of Nash Brick Company, Charles A. Thomas, I.W. Mangum, Mangum Tobacco Warehouse gentleman, Mr. L.D. Harper, and R.E. Boone. Watson, Robinson, Coleman, and Munn later held the office of mayor. So in 1925, Manus Munn was a city alderman, but in later years he would have become a mayor, one of the mayors of Rocky Mount. Okay, it says Suter, and again, this article was made in 1965, talking about these gentlemen from 1925. But it says Suter is president of a bank today in Roanoke Rapids. So I must be mistaken. I didn't read this whole thing earlier when I was looking at this, so that must not be Tom Suter's father, because I'm fairly certain he was a doctor. But anyway, it says Thomas is retired, and Nelson also retired and lives in Florida. So these gentlemen were all prominent Rocky Mount leaders in 1925. They went on to be very prominent in various businesses and industries around Rocky Mount, and in many ways were responsible for the growth of Rocky Mount. I saw some really neat articles about some of the achievements and some of the accomplishments that these gentlemen, each of them, had over the years. And certainly the mayors of Rocky Mount over the years were instrumental in pushing Rocky Mount forward and taking it to the next level. I tell you what, Lee, let's take our first commercial break. Bring it back to me. When we come back from the break, folks, we're going to show you some more pictures, talk a little bit more about Mr. Munn and about his business and what happened over the years with Munn, Griffin and Company. And then we're going to show you some other pictures of just different areas around Rocky Mount. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Way Back Wednesday.
On a Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitation and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal. providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
There we go. I didn't have the screen in front of me there for a minute. I've got a monitor here in the studio that I can see myself and see what's being broadcast out. I looked up and didn't see anything, so I wasn't sure if I was going out or not. I guess we are. So welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about Mr. Manus Munn, who run Munn Griffin and Company for a number of years. Sadly, in 1946, Mr. Munn passed away. There was a real nice article that was written up in the Rocky Mount Telegram about him and his accomplishments. And so I'm going to read some of this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But Lee, if you would go ahead and put up item number 6, which is actually the obituary itself of Mr. Munn that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram June the 7th, 1946. That would be item number 6, Lee. And while you're getting that up, I'm going to grab my buddy Holly's here, and I'm just going to begin reading this. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, just to kind of give you an overview. It says, Manus Dargan Munn, 66, a former mayor of Rocky Mount and an outstanding civic and business leader, died shortly after midnight last night at his home on Sunset Avenue after several years of declining health. A native of South Carolina, Mr. Munn first came here when he was working for the Atlantic Coastline Railroad Company. Since 1916, he has been the owner and operator of Munn Griffin and Company, dealers in wholesale produce. Funeral services will be held Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock at First Baptist Church, blah, blah, blah. It goes on to say, he was alderman and mayor when Mr. Munn was alderman from the 4th Ward continuously from May of 1922 to May of 1931. He was elected mayor. In that capacity, he served 2 terms from 1931 to 1935. It was during this term of office that the city airport was created and the parks program was undertaken. He was a former member of the city's airport commission. In addition to serving as president of the State Wholesalers Organization, Mr. Munn was a former president of the Rocky Mount Chamber of Commerce and the local Kiwanis Club. He was active in the Kiwanis tuberculosis work and was chairman of the club's committee on that activity until 5 years ago when he gave it up because of his health. He was director of the Planters National Bank and Trust Company, a director of the Planters Cotton Mill and Fertilizer Company, and director of the Citizens Building and Loan Company. Mr. Munn was a member and deacon of the First Baptist Church. And Lee, if you put up the next picture, this is actually the second part of the obituary. There you go. It says MD Munn, 66, civic leadership comes here. He was born in Lee County, South Carolina, a native of Lee County. He was born February 26, 1880. He came to Rocky Mount when he was in his teens and worked here as chief clerk of their freight depot. Later, he was sent by the ACL to Timmonsville, South Carolina. He returned to Rocky Mount about 1910, and the firm of Christian Munn was founded about that time. In 1916, he entered a partnership with the late C.A. Griffin, and the firm became Munn Griffin. After the death of Mr. Griffin in 1934, Mr. Munn purchased full interest in the firm and has owned and operated since that time. So again, this was the obituary for Mr. Manus Munn, who ran Munn Griffin up until his death in 1946. Now, at the death of Mr. Munn, the Munn Griffin store continued on. In fact, in 1956, and Lee, if you go ahead and put up item number 8, in 1956, Munn Griffin had officers in a board of directors meeting where they elected Mr. Hiram J. Harris as executive vice president of Munn Griffin Company Incorporated. The election of Harris, it says, veteran employee, marked the only change in the personnel of the company. Officers who were re-elected were George C. Winstead, president, W.M. Christian, secretary-treasurer, and W.P. Biggers of Durham, vice president. And this says Munn Griffin Company was organized in 1904 as Christian and Munn. It became Munn Griffin in 1916 with the late M.D. Munn and C.A. Griffin at the helm. And it says the company was incorporated in 1946. That might be 1916, actually. It's kind of blurry at the very bottom of the screen down there. So anyway, by 1956, Mr. Munn had been dead for quite a few years, and the company's still going strong. But sadly, as sometimes happens, due to a variety of circumstances, the business began to falter. And in 1963, there was a notice in the Rocky Mount Telegram that Munn, Griffin and Company was filing for articles of dissolution. So Lee, if you would, put up item number 9 there for us. And there you go. And it's just a really, you've seen these in the paper quite often over the years. And it just says, notice is hereby given that Munn, Griffin and Company has filed articles of dissolution in the office of the Secretary of State of North Carolina, and that pursuant to the provisions of the North Carolina General Statute, section 55-119, notice is hereby given that all persons having claims against the corporation are required to present the same to the undersigned at 502 South Church Street, Rocky Mount, this 31st day of August 1963. And you notice at the very bottom there, Mr. Dallas L. Alford Jr. Handled this process, this dissolution process for them. Many of you remember Dow Odom had the office building down there at 5 Points where the original First National Bank was. In fact, for many years, for many people, that building was the Alford building. So anyway, Dallas Alford was taking care of this dissolution of Munn Griffin in 1963 when it finally went out of business. A year later, in June of 1964, there was a public auction held there at the premises. And Lee, if you would, put up item number 10 for us. And item number 10 is just the article, the notice that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram. And as you see on your screen there, a public auction, 502 South Church Street, the Munn Griffin building, land area 119 feet by 180 feet, approximately 30,000 square feet of building, including 3 floors. The side railroad track was owned by Munn Griffin, a little spur track. If you grab by it, you can see the spur track is still there, it runs up beside the building. And this says the side track was owned by Munn Griffin and Company. There's refrigeration equipment that was in the building. It says replacement cost today would have been $100,000, and of course this is in 1964. So you can imagine how much refrigeration equipment there was in that building for it to be worth $100,000 in replacement costs in 1964. That's probably $1 million worth of equipment by today's numbers. Anyway, the sales to be held Tuesday, June 16, 1964, 11 a.m. on the premises. And again, at the very bottom says contact D.L. Alford Jr. So the building was auctioned off June 1964. I've not yet been able to determine who bought the building, but here's what's strange. I did several searches in the newspapers.com. I did some Google searches. I went to City Directory. I could not find a listing for any other business that had operations in 502 South Church Street from 1963 actually, when they dissolved Munn Griffin, up until 1991. So 30 years this building sat empty, it looks like. And in 1991, the last tenant to move into that building actually moved in. And Lee, if you would, item number 12 was an ad that appeared. By the way, there's the building. On the left-hand side, that brick building, that is Munn Griffin. On the right, the old Ferris. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
All right, before you get too far away from that situation about Mr. Munn, Dal Alford, who handled that event in those years, I think he was the person who married the Munn fellow's daughter.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Wow, okay.
All right.
All right, thank you. Okay, so here you see, this is, by the way, from Google Street search I did earlier today. And as you can see on the left-hand side, that brick building, the red brick building, the last company that was in that building, and I'll show you in a minute an ad, but the last company that was in that building was the Chair and Equipment Rentals. And they have only recently moved out. In the last 4 or 5 years, they moved out. And so across the street from that, of course, was the old Ferris Motors building. And if you look really good, straight down Church Street on the left-hand side, that white building you see there, just beyond the railroad tracks there, that's the old Coca-Cola bottling company. And that building, someone told me today, and I did not realize this, someone told me that the same man used to own both of those buildings, the old Munn Griffin building and the Coca-Cola bottling building. And eventually they were both sold, but I've actually done some work in the old Coca-Cola bottling building. It's been a few years ago now. But at that time, a gentleman from, I think it was from New York, and I forget his name at the moment, but he actually bought that building and had plans to do something with it. I don't know if he ever did anything at all with it. But anyway, you're obviously on Church Street facing north, and like I said, that building on your left there is the old Munn Griffin, and that railroad track you see that crosses over there runs along beside the building. And of course, you may remember, if you could turn around and look behind you right here when you're facing this north, that overpass bridge that goes over Church Street there, and from Franklin Street and Raleigh Road over to Atlantic Avenue. That's where that bridge is. So it'd be right behind us if we're standing here in the middle of the street looking north on Church Street. So anyway, and I'm not sure how long that Ferris Motors building has been empty. There was a auto garage mechanic in there for a number of years after Ferris Motors moved out of it. And there may be somebody in it now using it as a garage. The last time I went by there and took a look over there, I saw a bunch of cars out in the back that looked like they were being repaired or waiting to be repaired. So I think somebody's got it running a garage out of it. But to my knowledge, the Munn Griffin building on the left is still empty. And I found out today also, there's a gentleman in Rocky Mount, many of you may know the name, Troy Davis. Troy Davis runs a nonprofit, an LLC called A Fresh New Start. And he's bought several properties around downtown Rocky Mount, and he has acquired the old Munn Griffin building there on the left. I'm not sure what his plans are, and I just found that out today, in fact. So anyway, the building has been sold anyway, so maybe there's some plans to do something with it. It's a shame that I would like to see something happen with that building worthwhile, as opposed to it being torn down. It's a nice old building. The thing is approaching 100 years old. I'm sure. I think it was built sometime in 1930, so it's well over 80, 90 years old anyway. So, okay, now Lee, picture number 12, I think, I was getting that earlier. Here we go. This appeared in 1991. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Randy,
Yes, sir.
that Munn Griffin building
Yes, sir.
in the late 1960s, I don't remember what exactly that year, 67, 8, 9, somewhere in there, Eastern Electric Supply Company used that building.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yes, Eastern Electric used to be in that building during that time because I worked there a few years when they were in that building.
You know what? I had forgotten that. You're exactly right. And I don't know how I missed them when I was going through doing my searching. But they moved from there over off Falls Road, didn't they?
No, over off Falls Road. You'll see the Plymouth place used to be over there close to Burlington Mills off there. I can't remember the name of that street.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So off Pine Street, back over there.
Right, that's where they moved to over there when they left that building.
That's right, and I forgot they were in there. You're exactly right. Okay, thank you for sharing that with us.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Well, I thought it was odd that building would stay empty all that long time, and that makes sense. And now that I've been reminded of that, I do remember when Eastern Electric was in that building. So now I've got to go back and find out exactly how long they were in there, because that's going to bug me until I find that out. So anyway, in 1991, Hardee's have had their 30th birthday. They'd been in business 30 years, started in 1961. So in 1991, there was a big spread in the Rocky Mount Telegram where several local businesses bought advertisements in the Telegram wishing Hardee's happy birthday. And so in this ad here, of course, you see Chair and Equipment Rentals, who had occupied, and they moved in sometime in early 91, I think, because this is the first ad I saw for them, and it appeared in May of 1991. They were just one of many local businesses that participated in this spread to wish Hardee's a happy birthday. So you see there, happy birthday Hardee's, best wishes for continued success. And then at the bottom it says new location, and this is the new location for charity and equipment rentals, obviously, 502 South Church Street, Rocky Mount, and there's a number and the fax number. So they were there in 91, so sometime between 64 when they had the auction for the building and 1991, somewhere in that time frame is when Eastern Electric moved in there. And I think the gentleman's right, probably late 1960s, maybe even into the early 70s. Sometimes when you do these searches in this newspapers.com website, if you're not really careful about how you word your searches, you can miss something, and it's very possible that in my wording of what I was looking for, I didn't find anything, but I'll go back and do another search and try to find out exactly when Eastern Electric was in there, because I do remember they were in that building, sure were. Okay, so again, this is 1991 when this ad appeared here, wishing Hardee's a happy birthday. I mentioned to you earlier I had a picture I wanted to show you. And Lee, if you would, let's put up number 13. This is an aerial, this is actually a section of an aerial photograph that is really, really much, much bigger than what you're seeing here. I literally had to crop what you're seeing out of this bigger picture so I could bring it into you tonight. This picture is huge, and it's on the Charlie Killebrew collection of pictures at the Wilson Library at UNC Chapel Hill. And so what you're looking at here, of course, that bridge going across is the one that goes from there at Raleigh Road, where intersection of Raleigh Road and Franklin Street. The bridge starts there, of course, and goes across. You see it crosses over the railroad track, Main Street, ends up over there by Arlington Street. And so the building to your left, the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, that is the Munn Griffin building that we've been talking about. And directly across the street from it, you're looking at a very early photograph from this aerial photograph, and this is that building across the street from Munn Griffin is Ferris Motors. And so when I was looking at this picture today, the upper left-hand corner of the screen, and I know it's, I don't know if you can barely see it, but there's a corner of a building in the very top left-hand corner of your screen there. And this is in, of course, not too far away from the train station and that whole area down there. And I was trying to get my bearings to figure out what that building was, but it kind of gave me from the rest of the picture, and again, I cropped this little bit you see here, excuse me, just to show you the Munn Griffin. But I think that's one of the hotels. Lee, we got to take a commercial break. I got a frog in my throat. Excuse me. We'll be back in just a minute, folks. Lee, Tori, take us to a break.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
Okay, we're back. I do apologize. I had a frog in my throat. I just couldn't get out. Had to run get me some water, and I got my water. There was a caller calling in as I was jumping up going to get my bottle of water. So if you'll call back, I'll take your call now. I do apologize, but I just had to get something to clear my throat there. We were talking about this picture, this aerial photograph, and I found this picture on the Charlie Killebrew collection. Oh, there's our call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
All right, that building you were just speaking about is on the north side of the overpass, on the Edgecombe side of the tracks. That is the garage building that J.T. Garner had, and he was the man who owned the Bluebird taxi cab.
Okay, actually, Lee, can you pan that picture pan it to the right a little bit, because I think we're talking about two different pictures. The picture I'm talking about is actually on the Nash County side, and it's in the upper left-hand corner, very top left-hand corner of the screen there. And it kind of got cut off in this picture here, but the building is shaped like a E, like a letter capital E. You see where that curved railroad track curves onto the left there in the upper left-hand corner? That spur track?
Underneath the overpass, what you're looking at right there, where those two train tracks are, that look like a Y. That's the Y. The south leg of that Y is still there. The north leg of that Y that was up there went around the corner of the old YMCA building. That street that is down there on grade level, right there to the left of the overpass, that is the Raleigh Street grade crossing that used to come across the main line of the railroad tracks. It was interrupted when the overpass got built.
Right.
Opened in 1958. Now the building you're looking at, that building you're talking about right there is on the Nash County side.
Yeah, the far left-hand corner. That building, I believe, is the corner of one of the hotels, but I'm not sure which one. I was thinking the Rick's, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All righty. So, yeah, like I said, this is a great picture, and just what you're looking at is just one small segment. There's actually a bigger part above it and more below it that I just couldn't get it all on one screen image, so I've got to figure out how to do that. At one time, there was an option on the Killebrew photo collection there at the UNC Chapel Hill, where you could actually download these pictures, and you had a choice to download a small version of it, a mid-sized version, or the actual size, and some of these things were huge. And for some reason, they have disabled that option. I'm not sure why they've done that, but there were several pictures that I've tried to find a way to download the picture off the website, and there's no button to do it anymore, no option to do it anymore. So anyway, I'm going to try to find out how to get this whole picture in its entirety. There's a lot of good information here, a lot of neat things to look at in these old pictures. This is from the 1950s, by the way. Oh, we got another call. Let's get this caller. Hello, caller. You on the air?
Randy, good evening. That building in the upper left,
yes, sir,
is the now bus station, Rocky Mount City Transit. It was the name slips me right now, but it was like a freight depot building in this picture's era.
Okay, I'm not sure we're talking about the same building, and I'm not sure that that you're seeing what I'm seeing here on my end, because I'm not sure how much is being cut off. But what I'm talking about is on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a curved railroad track on the very far left-hand side, and it curves up and to the left and goes off the screen up there at the top. And that just to the left of that curved railroad track, that building. In the original, it's actually shaped like the letter E. In other words, it's got three wings, two on either end and one in the middle. It's a pretty good sized building. So is that the same one you're talking about?
Well, that building is the YMCA.
That's the Y. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well that.
And if you go down there now where the city transit station is.
Right.
You'll see a curved concrete wall that represents the curve of that railroad track that was removed when they put in when they redid the train bus station.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that curved wall that's there today is a reflection of that train track location.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I say from this picture, I just couldn't quite make out what it was, and it was really puzzling me trying to figure out what it was. It didn't look like it was in the right area to be the hotel, but I couldn't figure out what else it was. But that makes sense now. It was the YMCA. Okay, Bob. Thank you, buddy.
I think of the name of that freight company was something like Railway Express. I believe that was it.
Yep, my father used to work there. REA Express. You're exactly right. That's it.
All right.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So anyway, I found this picture, like I said, and that's kind of what got me on this tangent of this Munn Griffin, because I was trying to identify that building in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And like I said, in the original photograph, you can actually zoom in, and on the back side of this building is where the sign is that says Munn Griffin and Company. It's on the back side, opposite the side that faces Church Street. So anyway, that's how we got where we are tonight, talking about the Munn Griffin building, was this photograph right here, trying to identify that picture. Okay, so I mentioned I had been to Charlie Killebrew picture collection there, and I really had a great time looking through some of those old pictures. Some of them I'd seen before, some of them I had not, and some of these I'm going to share with you. You may have seen, you may not have, but it's just a snapshot in history, and that's one great thing about Charlie Killebrew's photographs. They take us back to a time when many of us were not even born. Many of you were certainly children then, but in any case, it's just a neat thing to go back and look at these old photographs. So most of these I'm going to show you in the next few minutes are going to be from the 1950s. I'm going to show you a young man that you may remember. Some of you may remember him, but let's go ahead and look at the next picture. This one is actually, I think it's item number 14, Lee, if I'm not mistaken. There you go. This was taken around 1959, I think it said in the photograph. This is the old Tom Stith pool over there by the train trestle off of North Church Street. And of course, when Hurricane Floyd came through, this pool got destroyed, and it was never rebuilt, of course. But in any case, these young fellows were learning how to swim there at the Tom Stith pool. And this was just one of those pictures that's just a snapshot in time and just a neat photograph. Let's go ahead and lead to the next picture. This next one is actually from 1958. And when I first saw this picture, I noticed a church first, beautiful church, and I thought, where in the world is this church at? And so, and by the way, this is a 1958 Booker T. Washington High School graduation class of 1958. And I'm not positive, the picture's been cut off a little bit, as you see on your screen now, but on the left-hand side, that little marquee there, it's got the name of the church. And it says in that marquee, St. James Baptist Church. Well, I think, and I'm not positive about this, maybe somebody recognizes the building, maybe some of you were there when this picture was taken in 1958, but I think this is now the St. John's AME Church over on the corner of Atlantic Avenue and Goldleaf Street, over there by the new Rocky Mountain Event Center, that great big pretty church on the corner over there. I think that might be this church. I actually did a Google search of that street address and pulled up that church. And it's got some very similar windows in the front of it. It's slightly different. It may have been remodeled over the years, but this is a beautiful old church. And like I said, this picture was taken in 1958 on the steps of the church. And at that time, it was referred to as the St. James Baptist Church. But now I think, if it's the same church, I believe it is, it's the St. John's AME Church. So anyway, again, 1958. Another picture from 1958 that some of you may remember seeing. I think we've shown this picture before. Lee, if you could go ahead and put up item number 16. This is the Wright's Chick Shack building over on Raleigh Road. Very popular place. Back when I was a kid, that place stayed packed. I never ate there. I can't say I ever went inside and ate there. I've been in the building in later years. It was a in fact, I think it still has something to do providing help and support and assistance to the elderly. And I was in there doing some work. It's been 4 or 5 years ago now. But anyway, one of Rocky Mount's, premier African-owned businesses that has served many, many people over the years. Not only served food, but in other ways as well, served the community. And it's certainly a historical place. Not only for the city of Rocky Mount, but for eastern North Carolina. Wright's Chick Shack was well known all up and down this eastern seaboard, South Carolina, Virginia, all around here. So very popular place. In the 1950s and even 60s and 70s, it was still operational. Okay, this next picture is actually one that I had seen before. But I just thought it was neat to go back and take a look at it again. And this is only from the 1950s, the only thing I can tell you. I don't have an exact date on it, but I recognize several businesses here, and I just wanted to kind of pick out and show you some of these. Obviously, the far left, there's the S.H. Cress's store. One of my favorite stores to go into as a kid. I loved that store. I don't know, just something about it was just neat. You know, one of the first true five and dime stores I ever remember going into, and I used to love going in this one. The Singer Sewing Machine store you see there, just a little bit north of S.H. Crest store, and then Kenny's Shoes a little bit further north from Singer Sewing Machine. There's 2 or 3 businesses and I couldn't make out what they were, the tall 2-story buildings there. I don't remember. I think one of them may have been a bookstore in recent years. I think it might have been a bank at some point too. And then a little beyond that, the City Industrial Bank is there. And of course, Almond Drug Store, and then Fox Jewelry, and then Planters Bank at the very far end of your screen. That might be cut off in the image you're seeing on your screen there. Sometimes when we put these pictures in the system here in the studio, it does tend to crop them a little bit, because I've got this picture printed off here in front of me, and I'm seeing a little more left and a little more right than what you're seeing on the TV screen, I think. So it may be cut off before you get far enough to see Planters Bank at the far right-hand side of the screen. But you're looking here, standing in the road in Main Street, looking roughly northwest. Kind of give you bearings of where you are there. Okay, so it was a young fellow that some of you may remember. Certainly, he was a very popular young fellow in the 1950s, and he contracted polio in 1953, I believe it was. And George Newby was his name, and you know, I read his story, and it was really sad in one sense, but at the same time it was inspirational. This young man went through so much and battled polio for 8 long years before it finally took his life. But Lee, if we could, let's go to the next picture, item number 19. And this picture was just captioned, polio patient. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about this picture here. I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry. This was Raleigh Road at Franklin Street in 1959. This was the very bridge that Eric mentioned a minute ago that went over the Church Street and, of course, the railroad tracks and Main Street, and ended up over there by Arlington Street. You see the water tower in the background there. That house on the left-hand side behind the truck is long gone. On the right-hand side is where Ronald Sykes Front End Alignment Place is now. And that house on the right that you see there is still there. Now, the one just to the right of it, the white house with the dark roof, is gone. But that other house there with the dark roof and the 2 windows in the front is still there today. All right, let's see, we got a caller. Hello, caller, you on the air?
All right, that building over there on the left-hand side, and that picture you're looking at right now at the Franklin Street overpass intersection, that's the old Brown Derby Hotel.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think it is.
Oh, all right, I didn't realize that.
The overpass opened in 1958.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. All right, well, there you go. We've talked about the hotel in the past, and I had forgotten that's where it was. But anyway, there you go. So, like I say, this picture was taken in 1959, I think it was. So anyway, the overpass hadn't been there very long, obviously. And so on the right-hand side, those buildings were torn down, and like I say, Ronald Sykes Garage is there, and then a little beyond that on the right-hand side is Danny Barrow's automotive repair shop there. And of course, cross over the bridge and you're over there by Arlington Street, not too far from the new post office. I say new, it's not new now, but the newer post office. Okay, we're almost out of time. Let's go, Lee, just jump on 1 or 2 more here. I wanted to show this George Newby. This young man, he contracted polio in 1950, I think it was. 1950, he contracted polio. Prior to that, he was very active in sports locally. He played basketball, played football. He was a Boy Scout. And he was a very popular young man, and when he came down with polio, his former teammates and the city as a whole, in fact, rallied by him, and it was just really heartwarming story about what this young fellow went through for 8 years battling polio. So Lee, let's go ahead and go through these real quick. There's only a few of these, and we'll go ahead and kind of go out the show with these. This was prior to him getting polio, of course. He was as a scout, as I said there. He was in the church there getting a medal pinned on him. Handsome young fella. He would have been probably around, I don't know, 14, 15 years old by this time. I think he was about 20, in his 20s when he passed away. So let's go ahead and lead to the next one. They had to make some special, provisions for him and accommodations because of his polio, and one of them was a rocking bed. I'd never heard tell of a rocking bed. But Lee, go ahead and put that next one up if you would. I think this is them unloading the rocking bed, but because of his condition, I'm guessing this rocking bed kept him from getting bed sores. He was pretty much bedridden, obviously. And so, we're going to be able to get that up, Lee? There may be a problem out there getting that picture up on the screen. I apologize. There it is. There it is. I'd never heard of, never seen a rocking bed, but apparently that's what it looked like. And the way it was made, it would literally rock like a rocking chair back and forth. And the only thing I can think of is to keep them from getting bed sores. But anyway, and then as he got worse off, the next picture, Lee, if you would put that up for us. And the Boy Scouts came to visit him. You see they lined the sidewalk there, either side of his sidewalk. He was supposed to go to Duke in September of 1958, and the morning he was supposed to leave going to Duke, he actually passed away early that morning. And his obituary, Lee, go ahead and put that up, and we'll finish up tonight with this picture here. That's him. There's a real nice article here. I'm not going to try to read this. We're out of time anyway. But it tells the story of his 8-year battle against polio. And, like I said, he was very active locally in sports, went to Rocky Mount Senior High School, and sadly passed away at a very young age from polio, something we don't think about anymore. All right, Lee, bring it back to me. Folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to get to the grocery store pictures. We'll get those next week, and we're going to find out a little more about when Eastern Electric was in the Munn Griffin building, because now I want to know. Thanks so much for watching, folks. Take care of yourselves. Have a great week and be kind to one another. We'll see you next week and more Way Back Wednesday. Good night.